Hello and welcome back to the podcast, and we're here with episode 3, the making of a cookbook, where we take a look at the recipes of this book. So there's 60 recipes in the Low Energy Cookbook, and it was a challenge to try and work out, dare I say, probably the last 10 or 15% of those. So as you'd have seen from the last episode, where I started in the approach was to map out the contents first and to structure it that way. And I came up with all the different headings, and the idea was 5 dishes in each heading. And that was a sort of way of making it bite-sized and manageable to come up with this list and give it a focus. So I started with soup. Soup was a great thing to start with. It's the starters on a dinner menu. It's the starters for the book. That was the logic, in all fairness there. And I put together a list of recipes that I normally cook at home. So you've got the cream of chicken soup, which is quite a versatile dish. We use that to cook in other various different things. There's the classic vegetable soup. Now, this was something I brought into the mix because I'm very keen on juicing, and it's the other way around. You're just creating soups with lots of veg, etc. But yeah, that was the sort of approach there. So these are things that I would normally cook. Now, I'll be open, soups aren't an every night thing, but when it comes to making soups, I've got a soup maker. I like making soups. It's nice, comforting and warming. If I have a Sunday afternoon at home sort of thing, it's the perfect thing to go and cook. And the same approach comes with a lot of these. Now, I cook a lot of pasta. There is a section on pasta, but it's pasta with a twist. Yeah, we use fusilli, but we did 1 pan pasta. Now this is a bit weird, because there was a pet hate. It's a low energy cookbook. You walk in, you've got 1 pan. Normally you'd have 1 pan with your sauce and you'd be, or whatever else, cooking and bubbling away here. And you always got that pan at the back of the hob, bubbling away with your pasta in. You've normally not bothered putting a lid on it because you're bored when you get your phone out and start scrolling through there. You've got distracted and it just boils and bubbles over. So it's something I've been playing around with the last few months, and it works wonders. You cook it all in 1 pan. I started doing this with noodles and ramen, and you literally use a big wok, chuck it all in, leave some water, put a lid on, and if you get the water just right, it just absorbs what it needs to, and then you're left with a thick sauce. And it actually works really, really well. So I've started doing the same thing with pasta, and we've got the 1 pan pastas. So I took a list of all the normal sort of pasta dishes I would normally produce and cook at home and put them through this approach. And there was a bit of trial and error. Spaghetti is a challenge because thankfully I've got a wide pan. So I can literally just get a stick of spaghetti in the girth of the pan. Not everyone's going to have as girthy a pan at home. I understand that. So you might have to go down the route of looking at the tips in the bottom of the recipe. It says, "Oh, you break pasta." Sacrilege, I know, but hey, it works. You're saving money on your energy bill, which is great. So there's that as well. So that comes into it. We've got some of the bistro ones. So we've got the steak and eggs dish. It's got like different sort of veg and bits that goes with it. That's a real protein heavy dinner. You've got a proper winter comfort dinner, which is the hunter's chicken. And that's done healthily. We've not been banging this in the oven. There's a healthy twist on how to cook your hunter's chicken. Not healthy. Energy efficient. I wouldn't call it healthy. Borderline healthy. Different interpretations. Energy efficient, definitely. So we bring that into the mix. It's a lot cheaper than using the oven. I'm trying to think what the exact numbers were on that one now, but it's definitely about 5 or 6 times more to cook it in the oven traditionally than the method we use in this book. So that's definitely one bearing in mind. One of the headings was an air fryer. Now, I've had an air fryer for a little bit, not overly long. I've not got too adventurous with it. It's still one of those things where I've not fully come on board with. I just like the gas of it. It's easier. My partner's very into the air fryer. So the air fryer recipes, there's a bit of an ethos here of what to do. It was about showcasing the capabilities of what you can cook in them more than reinventing the wheel. So I think one of them is we did roast potatoes. We did nice, classic, simple roast potatoes. Because we've all done it where as a side of a dinner, you've got something like something you've cooked on the hob, etc. And you think, I want some roast potatoes on the side. Or you've got some leftover roast you want to try and pair this stuff with. And you don't want to spend 2 hours cooking a roast dinner. Bless me. At least you can prove it's a live podcast. All recorded live, no edits. That works wonders. I'll sneeze again in a minute. It's a bad habit. And we are back. So apologies for that mild hiatus. I'm going to have to edit this. Is this what happens when I talk about roast potatoes? I just sneeze. I'm like allergic to talking about because I'm going to sneeze again. God, that's unholy. Unholy. So yeah, so roast potatoes were one of the dishes that we looked at cooking and putting in there because we all like the idea of roast potatoes as a side, but to cook them at home, if you want to feel like it's a casual dinner midweek, no one's waiting an hour and a half. No one's boiling your spuds up and then messing around roasting them in the oven. This book's proved it costs a fortune to do that. Plus, I ain't got the time. Air fryer, you can do it in a third of the time for a fraction of the cost. So it's things like that we start bringing into it. We've also got a baked oats dish we put in there. One of the desserts ones cross-references the air fryer and puts a pudding in there. It brings to life these different elements and what you can do. We did the same actually with a slow cooker. So with a slow cooker, one of the desserts was a cake. It was the cup of tea cake. It's sensationally good. I took it into one of the offices and it went down a storm. But that's in there, and that's using the slow cooker. Who would have thought of making cakes in slow cookers? It's something I'd always dreamt of trying to do, and I started experimenting with a few different recipes. And I thought, well, it's still the same build, not just a heating source. It's fairly cheap. It's like a mini oven. It's like a baking dish almost doing it, but it works really, really well. And a lot of these dishes then stem from me trying to cater for the cause almost, showcasing the various different ways you can cook things. So there's a sour and potato dish where we cook potatoes in a really weird way. It's almost like a sort of sauté mashed potato, but it works really, really, really well. Really quick and easy, energy efficient to make, and you'd never dream of doing it. So it's unique ways like that we've tried to showcase. It's something I've done for ages and people think I'm mad, but they taste them and it's on another level. It works really well. But yeah, the inspiration for some of the dishes did take some insight from my partner Hannah. I think it was more some of the salads. I've said before on this where salads are always ornamental. I got a bit braver and bolder. So I took a lot of inspiration from her for trying to steer them down certain directions to be very adventurous with the salads. And even I can say I really like the salads. I really, really do. In a sense, I think, is it the chili and mango one? Is probably one of my favourite salads ever. It's probably one of my favourite dishes. It's in my top 5 dishes in this book. And that says a lot. Because there's a couple of things in there. I've been cooking for donkey's years, like 10 years. One of them is my superfood salad. Superfood stew, sorry. And that was always traditionally my hangover cure. It's unbelievably good. It's got chili, ginger, kale, all sorts of lovely magical stuff in it. And it's so refreshing. It's unbelievable. I would say it's more refreshing than a ramen at Wagga's. Yeah. And that's my going out hangover cure. It's the next best thing. The ramens there are great, but this stew probably tops it. But hey, we digress. So the recipes came from old standing things that I've done, and some of it was trying to be creative. Again, some of these recipes were things I hadn't cooked in a while. I weren't too sure how they'd work. Some of it was a little bit experimental, so I can't think of the example now, but there's a handful of dishes where they took about 4 or 5 attempts just to get them right. And yeah, it really was quite something. But anyway, you've got the gist of the behind the scenes of where these recipe ideas come from. It was really fresh and healthy. I had some influence from my partner Hannah. A lot of them are long-standing recipes. So we've got our family paella recipe in there. I don't know if my dad knows that yet. We've got my chili recipes. I always cook from scratch. I can't stand people who do packet chili. Chili's easy to cook from scratch. There's curries in there. There's loads of sort of stuff that you can cook at home every night of the week from fresh. The chicken teriyaki, actually, that's all done from scratch. That was scarily Moorish. Something I've not cooked in a while, and yeah, it's something I've rediscovered. Making this book, cooking this book, making this book, are all the same thing, aren't they, at this point? But yeah, anyway, so the next episode, we look at some of the logistics of how this book was actually put together. And it was a minefield. There was tantrums, there was everything. But that's all for the next episode. In the meantime, if you haven't already, find the Low Energy Cookbook on Amazon. Feel free to give it a review, and I will see you in episode 4.